Have apologies from Councillor Brown and Councillor Wright. Can I have someone move the apologies be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Crown. Councillor Price, all those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. There are no conflicts of interest. No public forum. I have no announcements. Any announcements or any minor matters that would like to be included? We have none. And announcements from management? No? The Mayor? Done yours? Good. Confirmation of minutes of the Prosperous Napier Committee meeting held on Thursday the 1st of July 2021 be taken as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McGrath, seconder. Councillor Mawson. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. We have two items on the agenda for the open meeting, and item 1, changes to fees and charges. I welcome Caroline to come up and present on this matter. Good to see some reductions. May only be cents, but...
Thank you. And through the Chair, so this report is to seek approval to make some minor amendments to the fees and charges for 21-22. The changes are to correct some administrative errors and will have minimal impact on Council's revenue in the long-term plan. The changes relate to charges in building consents, transfer station and the public toilet on the Marine Parade.
Okay, thank you, Caroline. Do we have any questions in relation to these changes? As noted, some are just minor administrative things and legislation requirements.
I'm just relieved we don't have to spend a penny on Marine Parade.
Very relieved.
Free to pee.
21 cents. Any questions? Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation that the Prosperous Napier Committee approve the minor amendments to fees and charges for 2021-22 as set out in the tables in the report, and note the changes, if approved, are effective from 1 July 2021. Mover Councillor Mawson, seconder Councillor Simpson. You wish to speak to any
just
further?
to reiterate what Councillor Simpson said, it's nice to know that we're not charging for the public toilet up in Marine Parade now.
Councillor McGrath.
Just to reiterate that, throw the child-friendly lens over, it is good to know that we do have these facilities doing what they're doing, and I know we got a lot of grief on social media over this, and it's good to know it was just an error and an oversight, and we've corrected it.
There's no further questions or comment. I'll put the officer's recommendation. All those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Item 2 is the 2021 resident survey results, and as you would have all realised, residents and stakeholders are different. So, Adele.
And thank you, and through the Chair. So we have invited Soul Research to come back and ask any specific questions because they have left, but I can talk to the paper in advance. So as part of our KPI requirements for our annual reporting, one of them is around our customer satisfaction, and we've been undertaking the satisfaction surveys for more than 20 years. In the last few years, we've changed some of the methodology around the way that we approached our customer satisfaction, and rather than doing a survey once during the year, we undertake the survey in a cumulative type manner and undertake a survey of just over 100 people on a quarterly basis to get a cumulative view at the end of the year, which is the sample which is representative of the community-wide customer satisfaction, and Virgil can talk to the methodology there. So what we've noted in this year, and probably not surprising to you all, is that there's some areas, including stormwater, where we have had lower customer satisfaction, and obviously that was a result of the flooding event that we had in November. I think the report is quite self-explanatory, and sort of steps, where we've had some improvements or we're doing better than the national benchmarks, and then noting areas where Council might like to consider whether or not it wants to address in the future. And so we've made that note as note C in the resolutions today, that Council may like to consider what what their feedback is actually meaning as to what the work program might look like going forward. There has been a couple of areas where we've had improvements, and this is around our community information. So it's good to see that that has seen an increase in satisfaction over time. I should also note that across the board, and not just with our council, that we have seen a reduction in customer satisfaction over the last year, and just to point that out to councillors as well. Is there any questions? Thank you.
Councillor Price.
You mightn't be able to answer this question because it might need Dr. Troy, but the dissatisfaction of swimming pools, what is there a little bit more explanation to that other than we're just dissatisfied with swimming pools?
I think you will actually find some of the details in the report itself. Just to give me a minute.
Usually it was about this time in a meeting.
Oh, sorry, for the printout versions, it's page 55. So just through the chair, so it does note that there's some people who have obviously not commented around the pools as well, so it's only the visitors, but we can certainly look to provide council with more information around that. I know that there were specific questions asked in relation to the pools, so we can ask Dr. Troy for some more information as an action.
Councillor Price, I do recall at one stage when we were talking about swimming pools and dissatisfaction that I asked Dr. Troy, were the reasons for dissatisfaction the same over the last 10 years? Because we have constantly had a low satisfaction level with our swimming pools, and he did comment that the reasons were consistent and that related to the availability of lane space, freedom to just recreate and play, and those issues that have always been and are synonymous with swimming pools across the country, that those create the dissatisfaction. But without him here, I see Glenn out of the corner of my eye. Would you like to come to the table and give us some of your words of wisdom in relation to pool dissatisfaction?
Right, kia ora koutou through the chair. The most recent one showed 49% dissatisfaction, I think. So that's the second lowest it's been in about the last 10 years or so. I think it was 46 at some stage in 2017. The survey that I put a report to council was the more detailed aquatic survey that was conducted in February, which provided probably a little bit more substantiation or rationale behind why people are feeling how they feel, and the reasons behind provided through that was, as you say, lack of lane space, lack of space, pools not big enough, old, run down. So those are the consistent themes that are coming through, and I imagine they're very much the same as what's shown in this top line survey.
Thank you. Any other question? Mayor Wise?
Thank you, through the chair. And I guess just to continue on the comments that have been made already with regards to those additional layers of information on what we're monitoring, because I would be particularly keen to understand the drop in cemeteries. There's some areas I think that potentially it might be relatively simple to fix if we understood what it was that people were concerned about. So, yeah.
Chair, I believe it was through COVID that there were no burials at the cemetery and it was all cremation. That's my feeling, that the cemetery was basically closed to 1 to 10, and one of our staff, Manuhita, passed away during that time, and that would have been our funeral, our burial. That was a cremation. That's what I'm looking at. Our cemeteries are well maintained, and I can't explain it the other way.
Gary?
Councillor Simpson.
Through Mr Chair, and possibly an answer, Mayor-wise, the Taradale Residents Association have recently been having a discussion around antisocial behaviour that's occurring up in the cemetery environment, with people doing burnouts, loud noise, and other disrespect. Well, not allowing respect for other people. Let's put it that way. Yep. And I should say that's actually somewhat out of our control. We don't have staff up there managing or providing security, so we've really got to look at our social messaging around some of that.
Yeah, yes, we have had complaints regarding the cemetery with burnouts at Western Hall as well. We have notified the police. We do, as you do know, we lock the cemeteries at night now, and open in the morning to stop the vandalism and that. But we do have, just like the streets, and Napier, you'll see that now.
Thank you for your comments. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Councillor Simpson.
Through you, Mr Chair, it's really a simple one. It's for some of the core services, we've got that dissatisfaction survey that gives us the answers, or that page that gives us that graph of where the dissatisfaction lies. That information isn't present in this report for all other core services, but is it available to staff? Can they see that information?
Yes, we can.
Cool, thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation that we receive the Napier City Annual Resident Satisfaction Survey to the 30th of June 2021. B, note that satisfaction ratings and targets are part of the Council's planning and performing framework as outlined in the Council's long-term plan and reported on as part of its performance reporting in the annual report. And C, note that Council may wish to consider the results of the resident survey in the development of the annual plan 2021-22. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Crown. Seconder, Councillor Price. Councillor Crown, do you wish to speak? No. Councillor Price?
Should I just...
Yes, Councillor Bogue.
When this comes back to the council meeting for the double debating, perhaps if there are outstanding questions that we haven't been able to answer, that we could ask Dr. Troy to come back, or at least answer some of those questions beforehand, so that
we could make an action that we invite Dr. Troy to be available on the...
And as the chair speaks...
And as he...
What I prepared earlier.
he walks in. Could we invite you, Dr. Troy, to just come up? I know it's very short, but we may just have a couple of questions that you could add some context to for us. So before we put the resolution, I will again open the item for questions. Councillor Price.
Thank you. It may have been answered, but swimming pools. Can you just give us, other than just swimming pools, the satisfaction? It's about half, 49%. What is the issues? What are the issues that cause the dissatisfaction?
So I guess we've got a couple of perspectives here. One, we have the research we undertook as part of this resident survey, and then secondly, the research we undertook, which was a review of the Napier City Council aquatic facilities. So we have quite a lot of information with regards to that. In terms of, if you're looking at it holistically across both pieces of research, the feedback that we've got is generally a sense from the community of the current facilities that we have as being tired, a bit run down, and in need of some kind of investment to bring them back up to something that's a little bit more modern and doesn't look so aged. One of the issues that we that we picked up in the research across both the facilities was one of cleanliness, when actually it's not necessarily cleanliness of the facility, but the fact is, a stained tile or stains or chip tiles look old and look dirty, even though they may actually be up to speed in terms of general cleanliness and hygiene. So it's generally a sort of a lack of a perceived lack of investment in those areas, and the need to look at modernising the facility to meet the requirements of the community. Water in general, across all measures, tends to bring down the overall level of satisfaction. That includes storm water and obviously drinking water as well.
Okay.
So just a supplementary question. So when you go to the benchmark for the country, we drop off again, don't we, with the pools? So is that consistent with your answer?
Yes, unfortunately, in 2021, the satisfaction with swimming pools in Napier was below national benchmarking, and because we asked all the councils across all the residents across New Zealand, so we have a good picture to measure satisfaction in New Zealand in relation to swimming pools. So it actually highlights that, yes, there are rooms for improvement in Napier particularly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bogue?
Just another question with the same topic. The public swimming pool includes the marine parade pools?
Yes.
So it's those two pools,
Yes.
the Aquatic Centre, Marine Parade. Thank you.
Do we have any further questions that we can ask of Dr. Troy? Okay, thank you very much for coming back and making yourself available. Do you wish to make any comment in general in relation to the resident survey results?
I think it's important to bear in mind, and this is reflective of what we've noticed with other council research that we undertake, and typically with this type of research across the country, is that in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, there has been a dip in overall satisfaction across most councils and across most areas, and there's a number of factors that have contributed to that. The fact that in the early part of the year, most councils were consulting and engaging for their long-term plans. So there were quite a lot of contentious issues up in the air, which people tended to be at the forefront of people's minds when they were undertaking this type of research. We have also found that across the country, the effects of the COVID situation is having an impact on people's responses and general sentiments about most things to do with life. We've also noticed that the younger age group tends to be responding more critically across all council services, and this isn't just for Napier City, this is across the board. And we know that with some of the other councils that we're working with, that they too have queried, why has there been a bit of a drop-off, but those seem to be the contributing factors. So don't necessarily take this as being, well, it's just us. This seems to be something that is moving through research for council services and a lot of other services throughout the country at the moment.
Okay. Councillor McGrath.
Yeah, just a question. How long have we been doing this survey? Because we've got results for last year, this year. Did we do the same survey in 2019?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. It'd be just interesting to see the trending results. That's all.
So I think across most of the areas that we measure, there is actually a line chart which shows where it was back in 2010, and then from 2019 what sort of happened from there. So you can see that there tend to be trends. Either it's a stable result, or maybe it's trending downwards, or there are fluctuations depending on the year. So there is some information there.
And just through the chair, just to add to Dr. Vigil's comments, so it is in there, and what we've also noted is that we've got a dotted line where we have changed that methodology to doing it during the year, as I noted earlier, rather than doing a year-end result.
Councillor Simpson.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I just want to pick up on that issue around the younger respondents being more critical. And I think partly that possibly comes from social media where it's simply a criticism culture. Are they positive about anything in council services? And what I mean by that is does that give us an indicator where we are doing well? If we get positive response from them, is that a true indicator that we're doing well, or is it a misindicator?
I'll let you start on that, and then I'll chime in afterwards.
It's a really good question. For every attribute we measure, we're trying to significantly measure if there is a difference between age groups. So we usually trying to check this difference between 3 age groups, 18 to 39, 40 to 64, and 65 plus. Sometimes you can see that there are no differences for certain services within age groups. So they are not critical across the lot just because it's a measure of a council's performance. Sometimes the ratings are really even, especially when it comes to water. For water attribute, there was no difference at all between age groups.
Thank you.
Do you wish to add to that?
I think that pretty much sums it up. I mean, typically, well, no, that pretty much sums it up. They are happy about some things, not necessarily everything.
Just how do we engage them to be happy about more?
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any further questions? Right, did we get to a mover? We have.
Yes, we did.
Crown and Price. And Sally, do you wish to make any comment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do now. I didn't before, but yeah, I guess just to say that, whilst, it's a good practice to have, etc., data without context is, it can be dangerous, or it can be used in the wrong way, etc. So I think the keeping that in mind as we use it as an effective tool, that's a really important part of the equation. So it's been great to have that further layer given to us today to answer some of those more trickier questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Price? You wish?
No, that's good.
Councillor McGrath?
Yeah, I'd just like to note, as I think I have before, that our community expects some very high standards, and we just need to be aware of that, and as a council keep trying to meet and match those demands. And but when we compare, and that can be seen when we compare to national data, that we're actually achieving quite well, but not quite to how our residents want it at this stage.
Thank you. Councillor Mawson?
Yeah, just following on from what Councillor McGrath said, looking at some of the things we are getting right, I'd just like to put a shout out to our teams on the ground, because things like the cycleways and roading, footpaths and sports fields have ranked quite highly against the New Zealand benchmark. So just sort of saying, thank you to our teams.
Good. Thank you. We've had a number of people obviously speak in favour of receiving the report. Does anybody wish to speak against? There being none, we'll put the recommendation as the officer's recommendation. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Could I have someone move that we move to exclude the public in relation to 2 agenda items, the Hawke's Bay Airport Limited quarterly report, and the second, the expression of interest to infrastructure fund. Councillor Tapani, seconded by Councillor Simpson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.